So the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has announced it will reopen Yemen's main international airport and a seaport to let in humanitarian aid. Ports were closed 2 weeks ago after the Houthi rebels fired a missile towards the Saudi capital of Riyadh. Led to crippling aid shortages. Remember, about 7 million people depend entirely on food aid. The UN has called Yemen's humanitarian crisis the worst in the world.
We're monitoring these developments and we're trying to see whether that actually takes place on the ground. Of course, if that were to happen, that would be a very welcome and critically important development. We've made clear the tremendous amount of needs on the ground. We're ready to help if the ports are open, so we'll keep tracking this and see where we go from there.
In Washington, D.C. for us, Hilary Mann-Leverett is CEO of Strategia, a political risk consultancy, also a former State Department official and regular Al Jazeera contributor. Welcome, Hilary. It is obviously good news if these ports get opened up, but you feel, well, perhaps too little too late. I mean, the situation was already bad, and now there's been 2 weeks of cutting people off from the aid they need.
Yes, I mean, the first thing, which is critical and which UN officials are saying, is that we have seen no evidence so far that the Saudis will make good on their pledge to open ports, particularly the critical port in Hodeidah. That's vitally important. It takes in 80% of Yemen's food imports. So we'll have to really see whether the Saudis make good on their pledge. They have not done so before, so there's reason to be skeptical. Even if they do, though, the past 2 weeks in particular have taken the already dire situation in Yemen to catastrophic levels. There is a U.S. government agency here in Washington that was created in 1985 after the last famine in Ethiopia to monitor conditions of hunger around the world. And they just said this week that Yemen is facing what they would categorize as the very worst conditions for famine, phase 5, almost like a hurricane category 5, a phase 5 situation for famine in Yemen. So the situation is critically dire. And if these ports are not open soon, we are looking at potentially 7 million people at risk for famine in Yemen.
If this blockade is lifted, is it proof of anything? Is it proof that international pressure works against the Saudis? Is it proof that the Saudis are just showing, hey, we're in control and we can do whatever we want whenever we want? Is this moving the story forward any?
I think the pressure has worked, and I think it is evidence that pressure can work. As I mentioned, though, I think we really need to keep a close eye on this story. It is one of humanitarian catastrophe, and unfortunately, prior Saudi pledges to make good on opening not only the airports, but key ports like Hodeidah, which take in so much of the percentage of Yemen's food imports and their medicines, and sanitation. That hasn't happened before, so we'll have to see. But so far, it does look like the pressure has worked. The international outcry has made a difference.
Tell me about U.S. Pressure and or influence, Hilary, because as we know, well, the United States is an ally of Saudi Arabia, but in particular, this administration has shown in recent months how strongly it is linked to Saudi Arabia.
Yes. In fact, it started under President Obama back in 2015. The Obama administration took the decision, in part related to the dynamics involved in their negotiations with Iran, that to compensate Saudi Arabia for its misgivings over the Iran nuclear deal, the Obama administration would, in a sense, give Saudi Arabia limited leeway to do what it wanted to do in the region, including to invade and blockade Yemen. The Trump administration, though, has taken that to a whole new level, signing even more arms deals, supplying more ammunition, and backing the Saudis unconditionally in their blockade of that country. Where I see potentially some reason to hope that pressure, though, could change this dynamic is that in Washington, the power dynamics have become a bit complicated. Congress is getting increasingly concerned about what the Saudis are doing, And others in the administration outside of the White House, in the State Department, in the Defense Department, they're becoming increasingly concerned about Saudi actions in Yemen. But up until now, the Saudis do have a backer in the White House, in President Trump and his senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Until that changes, I'm not sure we're going to see a real change in Saudi activities in Yemen.
Hilary Mann-Leverett, a pleasure as always. And, well, it's Thursday here already, so happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much. You too.